British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan just concluded a meeting in Ankara, the Turkish capital, today, Monday, 27th of October. The deal struck was a colossal $11 billion for 20 Eurofighter Typhoons that will be given from the UK to Turkey. Twin-engine air superiority 4.5 generation fighter jets with the flexibility of working as a multi-role fighter, not just an air superiority air-to-air combat fighter. There was a memorandum of understanding, which is like a, I promise, I mean this. There was that earlier in the year issued from Turkey for up to 40 Eurofighters potentially to be bought. And that deal seems to have at least partly been progressed during today's meeting. Now, due to the nature of how these Eurofighters were developed, it wasn't just the UK by itself. And also due to the spectacularly complex production chain that is required to build these fighters, there is a consortium, a group of European nations that work on it together, notably including Germany, that need to sign off this type of deal. Well, that sign-off has been given. That sign-off has been received, so the UK can indeed sell these fighters to Turkey. Now, Turkey is known for having developed the Khan, the TF Khan fighter jet, expected to enter Turkish service very soon, and the service of many other, actually, notably Muslim majority nations that have already placed orders for that Khan fighter. But that's some years into the future. We're talking about the here and now, right? Well, that was all the news. Now here's the analysis. Let me tell you what's actually going on by my analytical assessment based on the evidence available. Guys, there's two things I want to mention. First off, Eurofighters, the Eurofighters that have been agreed to be delivered are set to be delivered past the year 2030. 2020, that's 5 years away. That's a long way away. That's like when Trump might try to use some voodoo magic to be re-elected for a third term, which is not constitutional, but you know, I don't put it past him to try and try that. 5 years is a long way out, right? Especially considering that domestically built Turkish Khan 5th generation fighters, that's better than the Eurofighter, on paper at least. These 5th generation fighters are set to be in production by 2030. In fact, Turkey has a target to have the first batch of TF Khans delivered into the Turkish Air Force for use by 2028. That's only 3 years into the future. So why would Turkey agree to older jets? Let's try again. Now, one take. Why would Turkey agree to older jets by a later date? That does not add up. The maths is not mathsing. What's the point, you might wonder? Well, first, redundancy. Redundancy meaning, having several things for the same purpose, so that if something fails, at least you have a backup, right? Better to have and not need than to need and not have, especially if some country starts defending themselves over in your backyard or on top of your head, right? But there's a more important element at play here. Listen closely. Turkey, many don't know, is a NATO member state that is vastly more developed than the average citizen in the Western world knows about. You might think Turkey is this far-off eastern country straddling the border between Asia and Europe. No. After the US, Turkey is the second largest military power in NATO. It's the largest military power in NATO if you're only looking at Europe. Turkey, all the way in the Far East, is the largest in terms of army size, in terms of military industrial complex maturity. It's uncontested, unless you start using mental gymnastics to somehow, which, some pro-Westerners will do, but I'm giving you the facts. Turkey didn't, you see, collapse its military after the Second World War and rely solely on the US to provide military overwatch. That's what the Western European powers did. That's what the Marshall Plan and everything else progressed. It progressed in that direction. Turkey wasn't even, by and large, part of the Second World War. Nowhere near in the same way as Western Europe, which was basically fighting amongst each other. Right now, Germany and UK, for example, are buddies, but back then, absolutely not. I think, I think it's an understatement to say they did not like each other. So Turkey isn't playing the same military industrial complex, the military industry basically catch-up game that the UK and France and Germany, the E3 and other European countries are playing in Western Europe. That's not Turkey. Turkey is already there. It's leading, in fact, in some sectors, such as their own homegrown, the TF Khan that I talked about. That's their fifth generation fighter program after they got rejected by the F-35 program from the US. They said, you're too brown or you're too Muslim. They didn't say that, but Maya played a part. They've got their fearsome Bayraktar drones, some of the best in the world, militarily speaking. So for Turkey, there's more at play here than just this being a simple transaction, a simple deal. Regional power Israel has, of course, made it clear to its neighbors that stability is not something it wants or needs, and Turkey has made some notable economic moves already in recent months to distance itself from Izzy Boy, such as cutting direct economic ties. Over 7 billion worth per year. Turkey is like, not interested anymore. The geopolitics doesn't favor me keeping ties with you. Rhetoric from Turkey against Israel is also sharp and harsh, and has been so for years, in fact. Has been so and continues to be so pretty much at all times, from the lowly citizen right up to President Erdoğan himself. These sort of anti-Israel policy towards the Palestinian territories, the criticism from Turkey is just continuous. Now, if Turkey can strengthen its relationship with Western powers with bribes, military and civil partnerships with the Western powers, it may decrease the odds, you see, that should conflict break out between the Turks and the Israelis at a state level, of course, it lowers the odds. These kind of military relationships lower the odds that the Western powers may be persuaded to provide help to Israel. Instead of stepping in for their traditional ally, a traditional aligned Western cultural buddy Izzy Boy, they might think, okay, now we've got too much that connects us to the Turkish state, and it's actually not in our best interest anymore to support the Israeli state. That would be the ideal for Turkey. Get Britain, get France, get Germany into a position where they feel Turkey will stand with them in the event the Russian bear comes pouring westwards. And in return, if Israel starts defending itself hundreds of miles to the north into the Turkish heartland, because it was, Ankara was, Konya, lovely seaside Konya was promised to them, 5,000 years ago or something, then Turkey can count to some extent on its NATO allies to step in, or at the very least, not step in on the other side to help the Israeli state. That's the hope from Turkey, because they're gearing up for something. Syria, of course, making it very hard for Turkey and Israel to be anywhere on the same page. They're reading different books in, obviously, different languages. What Turkey needs from Syria, Israel needs the exact opposite. Israel needs a fragmented, weak, non-Arab republic, not unified, not prosperous, not able to move against the Israeli state ever, ideally. And Turkey needs the exact opposite. They need a unified, prosperous, successful, giant, 35 million strong Arab republic on its southern border that they can trade with, that they can prosper with, that they can invest in, that they can help extract resources and get a nice cheeky slice of the profits for themselves. And of course, to send back the Syrians from Turkey, which is putting a lot of strain on the Turkish economy. Millions of Syrians are in Turkey. They would go back if their homeland was stable and successful, and they could find stability and success and prosperity of their own in their homeland. Israel needs the exact opposite, like I said. So it puts Turkey and Israel at odds with one another. So now Turkey is trying to shore up the help from the Western powers it may get. It might say, look, if you can't support me, attack on one is an attack on all, right? Article 5. Well, I don't even expect you guys to come with me to fight Israel, because that's honestly asking too much. The Turks might think that's asking too much, because the West operates in a sort of one set of rules for the rest, one set of rules for the West and another set of rules for the rest. But at least don't do anything against me. They're trying to boost those odds. Not to mention, of course, the tech transfers that Turkey might receive as part of this Eurofighter deal, not fully disclosed to the public, so I can't elaborate. I don't know. Now, 5 years is a long time. And I need to cut the video and start again. It's not because this is not one take, it is one take. But TikTok has a time limit, so I'll see you in a bit. Hang on. Let me just... Yeah, okay, so I'm re-recording because it's past the 10-minute mark. Someone said, Muffles, turns out you don't do one takes. Are you fake? No, I'm not fake. This is one take, but it's too long. I talk too much. Okay, so I need to press re-record. So it looks like it. Anyway, 5 years is a long time. And the cost is not $12 billion up front for these 20 Eurofighters. It's a gradual payment system. So an agreement, and maybe even a partial payment, may be worth it for the Turkish state. It might be worth it for a country that has Israel in its neighborhood, right? It needs to shore up its odds should things hit the fan and go sideways. With Syria under a new Turkish-aligned government, with Palestine on fire, with Israel lashing out like a cornered, caged beast, having gambled away its international... international respect, its diplomatic currency completely used up, and arguably them losing the blind support of its number one supporter, Big Daddy USA. The Middle East has Israel in it, and Israel looks more unstable, more erratic, more isolated, all sort of feeding off one another. It's in the most unstable and therefore dangerous position it has been in decades, one could argue, analytically speaking. That is obviously an analysis. That's just an opinion. It's not a fact. So Turkey's, taking steps. Turkey may be using military deals to skew the geopolitical odds in its favor should the dice of war need to be rolled soon. They want to up their chances that it comes out on their side. And for the unbiased news and analysis without the Western spin, I'm Mahfouz. And I'll see you on the next one. Keep learning so that you may one day mold the world into the world for which you've been yearning.